you did start, along with your colleagues in this piece, start talking about potentially next year and how that could have maybe happened this year with some of the teams. And the teams that are the most salacious are pretty much the entire NFC East.
Yeah.
And so you're reporting on why the Commanders didn't even look at Belichick is because Josh Harris decided during the playing season last year they weren't going in that direction? That's the case on that?
Well, I don't know that they telegraphed that, but it was the case that, they were looking for sort of a new era of Washington, new ideas. Somebody that they clearly identified Adam Peters pretty early in the process as a strong GM candidate. And once they interviewed him, they got sold on him. He's kind of got, a young man with an exciting vision. I think that played a factor. They wanted to get the GM part done first, but they also did really want new ideas, collaboration, some of those things we mentioned earlier. That was a factor for Washington. So, I don't know that they ruled him out at first off the bat, but it just sort of trended that way where, they had a conversation, looked in, inquired about Belichick a little bit, but we never got the impression in our reporting at all that it was serious. Atlanta was the one job where he was considered a viable option at one time. Washington, it was probably more of a courtesy call, based on what we know.
But Magic wanted Belichick? You heard that?
Well, certainly there was some interest there from Magic, yeah.
Magic, Magic knows what rings look like, and what it takes, and that one jumped out at the page at me. Yeah. And so Philadelphia, how would you term their reach out to Belichick that you wrote about in the piece, Jeremy?
Well, there was some correspondence there. I mean, Howie Roseman, we quoted in the story, that he had said that he checked in on Belichick after he was let go. Well, retired essentially, or moved on from the Patriots, however they couched it. They had the press conference that he was moving on essentially, and they were finding a new coach. And Howie had reached out just to see how he was doing. Now, the contents of that conversation could have gone a couple different directions. It's the way Howie told it, to us, that it was not some sort of job situation at all. It was more just checking in with him. But certainly our indications is that, Philly, like any team would, after the season, they're reviewing their entire operation and, they're looking at, what would their options be in the future, whether they were to hire a head coach now or down the road. But, they ultimately decided to stick with Nick Sirianni. So I do believe those evaluations were going on. And, things that didn't make the story is I do remember talking to a couple different assistant coaches who were getting word that Belichick was putting together a staff in light of having interest in some of those bigger jobs, whether Dallas was going to open or not, whether Philly was going to open. He was sort of preparing the runway a little bit and getting some staff members together just in case. And so clearly some of those jobs, I think, were on the forefront there for him and his viability.
Were they the usual suspects from the New England days or anybody else? Did you hear any names?
I would say a mix. We reported in the story that, Matt Patricia, Joe Judge, Josh McDaniels, some of those names were certainly kicked around as options for him. And what was told to me from a source is that, Belichick knew that Atlanta was a job that certainly was intriguing. They can win there, but it wasn't an instant contender. This is going to take a little time. They didn't have a quarterback yet at the time, although they would ultimately map out Kirk Cousins as their option. But they had some work to do. And so if he's going to turn it around quickly, he needed people that he could trust. That's a big deal for him. We've seen that over the years with him bringing people back into the building with the Patriots when they left or had failed head coaching stints. And so, he values that and believes that they can help him win. So that was sort of the thinking there.
Last one for you on this, and then we'll move to the draft. The general assessment from so many after reading your piece, Jeremy, along with Wickersham and Van Natta, obviously, is that Belichick is going to loom over the entire NFC East proceedings of the 2024 season. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Well, how could it not? And I will say, I do think getting a year away could help his candidacy, where the 2023 season was so raw for him coming off. Like, it was just really ugly and the offense got worse. And even though it didn't look like it could get much worse, and it did. And so it just, the Patriots way looked a little damaged. And we had sources even from people that were involved in that saying that felt and was indeed true. But now he's got a year to step away. He can do some media, which we see with the Pat McAfee show that he was doing yesterday, and the NFL draft that he's going to be involved in. He's going to speak at places like University of Nebraska, Washington, kind of doing the college circuit. Like, I think the rebrand could be strong, even though, depending on who you talk to, we've talked to sources who think he won't be an NFL head coach again. But I've talked to, people pretty prominently in that coaching industry that say he'll at least get a couple strong interviews and probably will be a viable candidate, because people will come around on what he's done. And especially if he gets himself out there and does some of these media things, it's like, maybe you get to see a different side of him personality-wise than what you're used to on the podium, which, isn't the most open. So I think there's a chance, and he's going to be more intrigued and have a plan for some of these jobs coming forward that have like history. I'm told that will be important to him. Of course, the Giants, we don't know what's going to happen there, but it's certainly some history there between the two.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.